Derek, anyway, haven't you?
But before 11:30 at the latest. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, hello and welcome. First interruption of the night. Welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. You're very welcome, Broadsheet readers, trolls, lurkers, shills, people who get paid to lurk on the site. You're very welcome. Joining us tonight from Dublin, Derek Mooney, a Fianna Fáil advisor and expert on the North, to talk about Arlene Foster and the Irish language and whatnot. Johnny Keenan, joining us from Kilkenny. Marcel Kruger, Cologne-born but Dundalk based, will have something to say about Brexit as well. Vanessa Foran from Dublin, accountant, GA fan, and Marcella, thank you. I see how you're communicating now. Okay, so I want to go first. We're hopefully going to be joined by Dan Boyle as well, the Jolly Green Giant. Not always jolly, that must be said. He's hopefully going to join us in a bit from a hotel in Mullingar, apparently. But Derek, I want to go straight to you first. The power sharing arrangement is off. You've described it. You wrote a piece for Broadsheet this evening. You described it as a huge, as a major crisis.
Yeah, I think there's a fear.
Nothing to do with the language. Nothing to do with the Irish language.
So. Again, like many things in the North, these things, what it appears to be about is not what it's actually about. And I think that the point was made this morning that the executive was brought down last year because of the cash for ash scandal, the RHI scandal.
Yeah.
But that was a catalyst for it. It wasn't the actual. It was the breakdown in trust in the years before that. What we have now is that we can't reach an agreement on the Irish Language Act, on gay marriage, on equality issues, on historical issues, on legacy issues, I should say, rather. So there, the ostensible the reasons for it. But I genuinely believe what this is about Brexit, and I believe this is about the power having changed over the last year, and the DUP now being the key power brokers in Westminster, but more importantly about the DUP MPs being the power brokers in Westminster. Because what we've got to look at over the last few days is why was everyone so convinced, myself included, last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that an agreement was imminent, that a return of the institutions was imminent, that devolution was coming back.
Why was that, Derek?
Certainly, that was the indicators coming out. Certainly, from that, the Sinn Féin had. I'm not averse to kicking Sinn Féin around, but on this one, I'm not going to. Primarily because I genuinely think that they had decided that they were going to have to move. I think they had come to that decision not just last week. I think in the weeks coming up to that there needed to be a return of the institutions. I think they did try to get the institutions back up and running last week. I think they did make some concessions to the DUP on their red lines. And I think the DUP, through Arlene Foster, indicated to them that might be enough. And certainly the mood music that the governments were picking up on, that journalists were picking up on, that everyone was coming down, and even from the participants themselves. I mean, okay, I clearly wasn't at the Sinn Féin or the last weekend. But certainly from the talks of people coming out of that, the Sinn Féin were preparing the ground with their own supporters. They're saying, look, we're probably going to be back in the executive. We're not going to get everything we wanted. We mightn't get an absolute standalone Irish Language Act, but in the new era, particularly with Mary Lou McDonald, they might have thought that the euphoria would have brought it through. Now, you could argue that the DUP, seeing that, they're going to play hardball with Sinn Féin, and we're now kind of saying, well, listen, you clearly need a deal more than we do, and we're going to screw you over. But there wasn't much sign of that. There wasn't much hearing of that. Now, there's two possibilities here. Number one, that the government's intelligence network is not up to scratch. And I have to say, that's kind of what does appear to be the case. But number two is a failure to recognise that Theresa May's dependence on the DUP, most particularly the DUP MPs, and the moving of the centre of gravity of the DUP to Westminster is something that nobody seemed to factor into the process last week. And what's quite clear from the DUP MPs, and just listen to their pronouncements, not just over the last few weeks, over the last few months, specifically on Brexit, they're hardline Brexiteers. They're absolutely on the same page as the hardline Brexiteers within the Tory party. And they now have made a hostage of Theresa May. And that is a serious situation, because we now have Brexit, devolution, and the future of the Good Friday Agreement all rolled up in one neat little crisis.
Would it make any difference with a change of leader in the Tory party?
You would hope so, but probably not. I think that it's not all black and it's not all dark. One of the things I point out, which is it's what we find ourselves quite ironically, that the people who now believe most and the people who the people who believe most in the Good Friday Agreement and people who understand its contents most are now sitting in Brussels. And it's Michel Barnier, God between us no harm, it's Jean-Claude Juncker. Yeah. But what you also have is I don't know whether it's going to come to pass, but what you see over the last couple of weeks is a growing alignment of centrist, moderate Labour MPs, centrist, moderate Tory MPs who are saying, look, we want an EFTA type arrangement, like something similar to Norway, which is we stay in the customs union, we probably stay in the single market, but we go out of the institutions. And that because a good friend of mine is a guy who was the former Tony Blair's former Europe minister, Dennis McShane, and Dennis McShane has been writing about this for a long time. And Dennis McShane has said that he believed that was ultimately what the way it was going to work out. That the people feel that they have voted to leave the European Union in terms of its institutions. So they're out of the European Parliament, they're out of the Council, they're out of that process. Parliament is now sovereign again, to use their own phrase, but that they are still part of the trading arrangement. And that's kind of what Britain had always wanted all along. Britain wanted the trading benefits of the European Union, but none of the political ramifications of it, and that's what they'll end up with. And
I mean, what you guys call the mood music. At what point did you realise that an agreement wasn't going to be reached? Because it wasn't.
The strange point is I was talking to a couple of my friends who are up there at the moment, and certainly by Monday, I was travelling all last week. I only got back from Germany on Monday lunchtime, and I was talking to a colleague of mine mid-afternoon, and he was saying this isn't looking good, and it was about, he said, like that the Taoiseach was there and the DUP weren't rushing to meet him, and that people were starting to wonder, like, the optics of this. I mean, the one thing governments do extremely well are the optics of big occasions. So when the Prime Minister is wheeled out and the Taoiseach is wheeled out, you have to presume that they're not there just to take a tour of Titanic or to check out the cathedral quarter in Belfast, that they're there for a specific purpose. But it quite clearly emerged as the day was going on that there wasn't much happening.
We had this
but frankly, I'm not going to claim any great foresight on this, because yesterday, right up to Arlene's statement, it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear. I mean, that there seemed to believe, okay, Arlene was saying it could be up to 2 months. Now, 2 months is like it's an odd timing.
Yeah.
But
Derek,
there we are.
This happened before a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? So there was
what you had before Christmas was when Theresa May went over to meet with Juncker, and Arlene made a phone call, and kind of everything was put on hold. Yeah. But I think some of it comes back to that. I think that the Tory Brexiteers, the hardline Brexiteers, are only now starting to realise what exactly was agreed in the first phase. And they're also realising that the first phase wasn't what they hoped it was, just a political agreement that didn't have much body, and that even it was just words. And now that Barnier and the Europeans are making quite clear that what was agreed in the first phase is to be part of a legal document.
And is incompatible with the Good Friday Agreement.
What was agreed in the first phase is compatible with the Good Friday Agreement. What the Brexiteers want is incompatible with the Good Friday.
That's what I meant,
So now that they're realising the hang a sec, and that they've now realised, about 2 years after being told, that the Good Friday Agreement is central to all of this. That the Good Friday Agreement means, in effect, that you cannot have a border on this. Now, it's not written into the Good Friday Agreement as in there shall be no border. But the political background that informed this, the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement, is about the normalisation of politics on this island. And that they're now realising that the European Union grasped this, and they're saying, well, look, yeah, that's fair enough, but you're going to have to recognise that there are 1.8 million people in Northern Ireland who hold EU citizenship. They have voted to remain in the EU. You can't just say, like, listen, we're taking your citizenship off you. Yeah. I mean, the point I've made from within days of the Good Friday Agreement was, one of the principles of the Good Friday Agreement, one of the principles of the political settlement in the North, and one of the things that unionists insist that nationalists and Republicans signed up to, and not unreasonably, may I add, is that the status of Northern Ireland should not change without the consent of the majority. On Brexit, the majority voted to remain within the EU, but they're being told your constitutional position as a EU citizen is now being changed, whether you like it or not. Now, that's a difficult thing to ask nationalists and Republicans to accept.
And now the Remainers will manipulate the situation to the nth degree.
Well, I think they are, but and that's why I think they are playing politics with the Good Friday Agreement, not because of any antipathy or dislike of the Good Friday Agreement, but because Brexit is the only game in town as far as the hardline Brexiteers are concerned, and the DUP MPs are the people who never really liked the Good Friday Agreement to start with. I mean, I am painting Arlene Foster as a bit of a moderate in this, but there are moderates in the DUP. They're not all antediluvian troglodytes. There are people in the DUP who kind of get it. But what's happened is there's been a seismic power shift in the DUP, and the problem is none of us really faced up to that.
And
can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Do you think that the DUP now they are in favor of direct rule just because they are in a way that the king or queen maker, whatever you want to call them?
I wouldn't say that they're in favor of direct rule, but they feel that they've nothing to fear from direct rule because the direct rule ministers will be dependent on them. I mean, like the DUP have power of life and death in the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. They can pull out in any vote, and it's not that they'll bring down the government. It's not in the DUP interest to bring down the government, but it's in the DUP's interest to make life as tough as possible for the whips and for the Tory ministers in the House of Commons, and to do it on a day-to-day basis and remind them where the power lies. And I think it's in that thing that the DUP, if you look at it in terms of return of direct rule, a direct rule is an absolute anathema. It's the antithesis of what's in the Good Friday Agreement. But not only that, it's basically saying to nationalists and to Republicans in the North, you don't matter anymore. And like this is I think I was listening to Simon Coveney on the Dáil earlier, and I just think at moments he doesn't get it. I really think he doesn't get just how big a moment this is. Partly that is because some of the blame is going to flame back on him, and I think part of it's kind of his truculence today or his petulance in the Dáil.
And there's also a kind of it's about the Irish language. It's not really, this is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's like all the things. I don't discount how important the Irish language is. I don't discount it. It is about mutual respect for culture. It is about mutual respect, and it's not about making the Irish language compulsory. It's not about having a massive cost base to it. It is about saying, look, in Scotland there's a Scots Language Act, and in Wales there's a Welsh Language Act. These are not. I mean, and by the way, when you go back to the original Good Friday Agreement, it was agreed that there would be an Irish Language Act, except it was agreed at the time because it wasn't one of the devolved powers that the British government would deal with it, and they didn't. So there was a responsibility between the two governments on that, but there's also a responsibility that. But the problem is Sinn Féin then weaponised the Irish language, and by the sheer weaponising of it, they made it difficult for the Unionists to give what shouldn't have been a concession in the first place. It should have been just a straightforward acknowledgement.
Well,
Ireland, when things become tough, everything becomes a zero-sum game.
Well, I mean, the Brits started the old translations nonsense, didn't they? With the
look, in case of doubt, the Brits started everything. So, let the blame fall where it should. But I mean, that's. But I do think we should not underestimate the degree to which there is a big problem, which is completely outside the Irish government's purview, which is. If we go back to the relationship between Albert Reynolds and John Major, or the relationship between Tony Blair and Bertie Ahern, the relationship based on mutual trust, because there was John Major got what needed to happen in Northern Ireland. He independently had reached that conclusion, though in fairness, Albert Reynolds had been kind of preparing the ground with him when he was the finance minister well in advance. Same with Tony Blair. They came to office kind of fully formed on this. Theresa May is now dependent on the DUP, and therefore the Irish government no longer has an independent, equal partner in the talks process, and that is really a dangerous situation.
Derek, there's so much I want to kind of cover with you and the panel as well. I want to talk about Mary Lou McDonald. You wrote a savage column last week because you were generally even-handed with Sinn Féin, I think. As a Fianna Fáiler, I mean, you keep your options open. Well,
have a read of the comments. That's not anyone's viewpoint. But I think I've ever written about Sinn Féin. Well, I try. What I do try look. There's no doubt. Look, I'm a Fianna Fáiler unapologetically, and I have lots of problems with Sinn Féin. But I don't regard everyone in Sinn Féin as the devil incarnate. I don't regard Sinn Féin as being kind of some great evil criminal conspiracy. But I think there are some fine and decent people in Sinn Féin, as ours in every single political party. My problem with Sinn Féin at the moment, though, is that we're asked to believe that this is now a political party. It's not a political party in transition. It's the same operation it has been all along.
You mean to
say?
Sorry.
You can't say that. You can't say that. But you can't say they're not a political party when they have that many elected candidates for a start.
Well, absolutely.
No,
Derek.
Well, I don't think you can say that they're not a political party.
I can.
Sorry, Derek, 1 second. Just on this, we were talking about the Good Friday Agreement about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Back in the late 90s, we were being persuaded that Sinn Féin was a political party by you guys.
No. What we were persuaded by is that there was a political process and that Sinn Féin had committed, that Sinn Féin had rejected violence. I accept that. By the way, I don't question for 2 seconds that Sinn Féin has rejected
20 years ago, Derek. Though.
Oh, no. I don't accept, I don't doubt for 2 seconds. I would say that there was a process with that and they were being shepherded into the political process.
So they're a political party, no?
They have
the oldest in the state, actually.
No, they're not the oldest in the state. They hail from the 1970s. No, let's not start that nonsense again. If Sinn Féin believes it's the oldest party in the state, then why doesn't it acknowledge the role of Arthur Griffin? Why doesn't it acknowledge the role of Eamon de Valera in its history? But it wants to claim that lineage, but it doesn't. It claimed to have its centenary last year and airbrushed the whole period out of it. So no, I'm not falling for that one.
Well, I think Fianna Fáil are being very short-sighted there by saying Sinn Féin is not a political party, and that their elected representatives are not politicians.
I didn't say they're elected. I said they're not a normal functioning.
So are you saying they're just independents?
Of course I didn't say
No.
Well, if you're saying they're not a political party, what are their elected representatives?
They are still run by the Army Council. They're still run from Belfast by the Army Council. Everything in Sinn Féin is done for the benefit of Sinn Féin.
Derek, okay, that is your opinion, but you believe that they're in transition?
Oh, I believe they are. And I think that transition is continuing. But I think we're expected to believe that the transition is now coming to an end point with Mary Lou McDonald, and it isn't. Jerry Adams has not moved off the stage; he's moved backstage. Oh,
okay, but again, that is just an opinion, and I appreciate that. But I do understand that they operate differently from most political parties. Yeah. But within their number, like people like Owen O'Brien and people like Mary Lou McDonald, does this stuff stick to them? I mean,
no. But my point is, and that's the point I made on Tuesday, which is, and by the way, I accept this as a criticism of all parties. I think saying to people continually, these are bad people, these are bold people, these are naughty people, these are people for whom and then wheeling out Jean McConville, etc. That isn't hurting Sinn Féin. And that isn't hurting Sinn Féin, not because the public have no lack of morality or anything like that, because the public treat political parties not as individuals. They use a different criteria for it. And I think that why Sinn Féin should be criticised, and I think where their vulnerability lies, is their inability to deliver. They were woeful in government in Northern Ireland. Absolutely atrocious. The DUP ran rings around them morning, noon and night. Their ability to deliver for their people, and I mean their people in terms of the people who vote for them and support them, has been virtually nil. But they don't get that. That judgment call doesn't come through because every election in Northern Ireland is about 2 zero-sum games on the national side and on the union side. And it's a crude term for it. I'm not going to try to get into it, which is it's basically a super unionist versus a super nationalist. And
but you would say that they're trying to deliver right now, right? They're trying to deliver an Irish Language Act. They're trying to deliver.
But they might. But the method. Look, what they did is they brought down the institutions last January or February. They brought down the institutions with Jerry Adams announcing where all their failures have been over the years beforehand. But the point of a political party is to make politics work, is to make parliament work, is to make government work. They say we want these things to happen before we go into government. The purpose of going into government is to make it happen yourself. And what they're doing is, I mean, I've no problem with somebody using their leverage, but that's all they do is use leverage. When they go into office, they actually do nothing with it.
I'm sorry, Johnny or Marcel or Vanessa, do you want to get in here? Vanessa?
Yeah, well, sorry, just ahead of the lads there, just for a sec. Sure. I think your expression, weaponising the Irish language, is quite shameful, to be honest with you. Particularly given, I think using that expression, weaponising the Irish language, saying Sinn Féin weaponised, because that Language Act actually includes a number of dialects, including Ulster Scots. So that's first of all. And I know quite a number of Fianna Fáil people that love to lash out Osquelia to put manners, even on their own party members. So if you want to talk, like I think your choice of words there are, I'm just going to say the word unfortunate, because I think using that expression weaponizing. Secondly, additionally, when you mention about the Army Council, do you seriously think Peadar Tóibín is answerable to the Army Council?
Do you mean in terms of his position on the 8th?
No, I'm not sure. You said they're run by the Army Council. You said it on the show a few minutes ago. You said they were run by the Army Council.
Yeah.
So do you think? Are you telling me that Keane and Cork South Central and Peadar Tóibín, all them are directed by the Army Council?
I would ask you to look through how many councillors have quit the party.
No, that's what you're saying. Like, would you put words to that?
No, yeah. Just Vanessa and Derek. Vanessa, sorry, Derek. 1 second. Just we're Derek's guest, and we're just I mean it's a heated topic, but let's just.
Well, I've no difficulty with the question. But what I'm saying to you is that it doesn't function as a normal political party. It is not, and it is not. It is a top-down organization which is centrally controlled, which is centrally led, and its policies are decided essentially. And I mean, you can go through a whole range of councils who got elected. How many councils have quit various councils and the rest when they suddenly realised that they were not just there as local representatives.
But Fianna Fáil are no strangers to lads going off on their own.
Derek, can I
but they don't quit.
Sorry, Derek, can I ask you in terms of...
Boris the shame.
What? Well, you're talking about that's entirely.
Can I just mention something about Europe and the Westminster DUP members? I'm open to correction. I'm sure Mr. Mooney there will be very quick to do it. But
it's Derek.
wasn't Nigel Dodds, wasn't he employed by the EU for about 10, 12 years before he ran as a candidate?
He was a barrister, to the best of my knowledge. His wife.
Yeah, I think he was elected. I know his wife's an MEP. Went you? She got hammered by the Sinn Féin candidate in that election, by the way. But
an MEP, isn't she?
Well, Martine Anderson, I think, but she topped the poll by a long ways off, and the DUP and the Ulster Unionist guys just scraped through, with Sinn Féin taking that vote. But they're going off the point I was trying to make. But I think Nigel Dodds was employed for at least 10 years by the EU Secretariat. So I suspect I know they're siding with the Brexiteers here, and I do actually think it's a struggle for Arlene. I think she's more appeasing her support, which is effectively a rump of pastors and reverends and Paisley and all that crowd. And this sort of the Language Act, I think, is just it's just an excuse. But she there's also the tolerance there as well, the equality and all that. And I suspect you will have a referendum on unification very soon.
When?
I do. I really do.
Soon, Derek.
I think it'll happen before Brexit happens.
Well, Brexit is due to the October this year.
If I was to be critical of Sinn Féin at the moment, it would be I think they should have had a contest in the same way for the leadership, even if it was phony in the way Fine Gael did, and they turned it into literally a roadshow. It was like X Factor between Simon and Leo. I think they missed an opportunity there to sort of put themselves on the road.
Can I just flesh out the referendum? Like you know on the grounds on which a referendum is called. It's not up to Sinn Féin to call the referendum. It's up to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland.
Well, don't be surprised if Leo and Simon call it. Don't be surprised.
Can't call it. Unfortunately, they can't call it.
That would be my question. Who can call that?
They will.
I don't see that happening.
Well, it has to be
the EU will, because you've even said it yourself. They are one of the biggest defenders of the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah.
Derek, can I ask something, and maybe the panel can consider this as well? A couple of weeks ago, Steak Knife the IRA informer, said that both McGuinness and Adams were compromised or informers for MI5. I've always wondered, you know, I mean, everybody's wondering whether Adams was in the IRA. I always wondered whether that was the case, whether they were controlled. And we also learned that people like Joe Cahill was also compromised with pedophilia. And also on the loyalist side, you had a number of their leaders compromised by the MI5. I'm just wondering, in particular, about the 1980s campaign, which was so nihilistic and so insane. But both sides were controlled by MI5.
There is, look, what is one of the saddest aspects of, number one, people rightly refer to it as a dirty war, and it was a filthy war. And it was a filthy war, including the Brits. And there is no question of doubt that there are so many atrocities that you just wonder how much advance notice of the Brits have of these and allowed them to happen because it suited their purposes in terms of maintaining their sources and maintaining their agents within a whole range of institutions, that the amount of collusion is terrifying. So, I mean, that there is no question about this. And it is why, unfortunately, both the Brits and Sinn Féin at some points actually have a common interest in keeping the past in the past. And there's a particular, I mean, if you follow Stephen Travers and the victims' organizations on all sides, and they're crying out for people to tell them the truth. And that is one of the biggest damaging, and it is one of the aspects of devolution not coming back. It is one of the things that still hasn't been addressed.
But Derek, what if
and by the way, nobody has seen that. Nobody.
But what if the truth was that this was simply controlled? I mean, it seems to have.
I don't believe that. I don't believe was it controlled. Was it manipulated entirely? I don't believe all of it was a fake. It was a fake war, because one of the reasons why we came around to the Good Friday Agreement was the final realization by the Brits that there was no security solution to a political problem, and by the IRA to realize that no matter how much bombs it did the rest of it, that they weren't going to change the political dial. And if anything, it was setting the cause of unity back further and further and further. And that's the great tragedy of the last 30 to 40 years. The great tragedy of the provisional campaign is it set the cause of unity back. It didn't move it forward one iota.
Or that it went beyond Sunningdale, you know, I mean, that it didn't stop around that period.
Well, I mean, it's the Seamus Mallon line, which is, and again, this comes back to the Good Friday Agreement. Seamus Mallon's line was that the Good Friday Agreement was Sunningdale for slow learners. But if and I don't believe the Good Friday Agreement is going to come apart. I don't believe. But if the worst happens, if the Good Friday Agreement completely collapses, and we are stuck in a hiatus for 5-10 years, whatever comes back will be the same agreement. The parameters of this are set. Now, in fairness, what was in the Good Friday Agreement is a far more sophisticated and a far more holistic, for want of a better phrase, than Sunningdale. But there is no other game in town. There is no other structure or mechanism in town than the Good Friday Agreement. Now, does need to tweaks at the edges? Does need to this? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are mandatory coalitions a good idea? We're starting to realise no, they're not. But we still haven't had the normalisation of politics in the north.
Does anybody else want to come in here? Marcel, do you want to come in? Vanessa, Johnny, at this point? No?
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on there. Derek has covered a fair bit, so has Vanessa. I think it's always been complex, the Northern question. With the Good Friday Agreement, I remember it very well. I don't think anything after Oma, you couldn't go. You could only go forward. There was no going back. I think that could have been the clincher, really. For the people anyway. I think politicians have always gotten in the way of peace, especially in Northern Ireland, in my experience of looking at it. And I realised the sacrifices that Bertie Ahern would have made from a personal perspective, and Albert Reynolds meeting in
Major
car parks and all that, in Algiers, Northern Ireland. So I know the sacrifices Fianna Fáil have made, but I also know that was there money put on the table, really, when it's all said and done?
Of course there was.
Yeah, okay, listen.
It was European. The most of it was European money.
Okay, well, so therefore, it goes, yeah.
Well, no, gentlemen, you have to remember the DUP took a very sizable sum of money from an organisation during the Brexit referendum.
Yeah, but that's not. But I think in fairness, talking about
it is about money. It is about money.
Wraparound during the Brexit referendum on one of the Metro newspapers.
Well, I mean, the collapse was about money, a financial scandal that Arlene supervised, and I actually don't think she realised how exposed she was, or how big that scandal was when Martin McGuinness called her out, and I don't think she was a vote. Don't think she's ever
in December, which Sinn Féin abstained on. So Sinn Féin only came late to the Cast for Ash.
Well, I don't think she realised how big that scandal was, and she's never accepted responsibility for it. She's at a loss now because the Westminster DUP members are effectively the only parliamentarians in the DUP at the moment.
Yep.
So she's heightening. She's feeding her base, by fighting it out. And you even said yourself, Derek, early on in the show, was that about Mary Lou at the Ardèche saying that they were conceding on this and they were on the Language Act and stuff like that. That just shows Sinn Féin are willing to concede something. They are prepared to meet people at some point on the. That's the thing about negotiation. Everyone has to walk away not feeling they got more up on the other one. That's a successful negotiation.
And the other key element to any negotiation is the person on the other side of the table who has the ability to deliver, and that's what clearly was missing this week.
Yeah, but I read your piece, Derek, and I seen an interesting angle on it, but I'm not saying I totally agreed with it. It did kind of open my mind in relation to where you were coming from London, Westminster.
Yeah.
But on Monday, Theresa May and Leo Varadkar were in Belfast, ready to take the adulation of Artin Wee Great, and I think they were told to do one by Sinn Féin and DUP respectively. No. But anyway, so they're back to where they are. From a simple and logical thing, and this is where I come from most of the time anyway. How about, lads, if you don't get an agreement, we'll just stop your payment. Just something that simple, first of all. And I know, as I said, it is complex, and it might have to go back to, but dare I say it, metaphorically, the bomb is ticking, and they have to be out by March 2019. So isn't that what Article 50 is essentially about? So if they don't have it sorted by then, it's not sorted.
They have to have it sorted by October this year, because basically the framework of it needs to be in place by then, in terms of Article 50.
Yeah.
But so you're absolutely right. I don't disagree. The one thing I would say about, and I understand perfectly everyone the view about, look, what the hell are we paying MLAs for when the Assembly isn't sitting, and why an MLA is getting paid?
Sure, why would we pay TDs when they're not sitting? But we have to pay them. We actually have to pay them to turn up.
It's a long night. We get to that.
There's a point about that.
Like you can't pick and choose what expenses. Actually, lads, can I change the tune a bit? Do you know who was part of the Commons expenses scandal? One of the top baddies, Nigel Dodds. I'd say he was in the top 2 or 3 in their recent expenses scandal.
Okay. Well, Derek,
interesting how that wasn't covered by the Irish press or the Northern press.
I think you'll discover that the Guardian, wasn't it the Telegraph that actually had all the CD-ROMs? That they had actually run them.
I haven't heard you mention.
By the way, Sinn Féin MPs are not averse to accepting their salaries, etc., and their expenses, and using the facilities in the House of Commons. So I'm like, forgive me if I don't take that lesson too seriously.
Derek, that's something I wanted to ask you. 2 things actually.
Sorry, if it's recognised as a scandal where some MPs were put in prison, and Nigel Dodge was in there in the top 10, I think it's a bit more than saying, everyone claims expenses.
That isn't what I said at all.
But you suggested that people are claiming expenses. You did.
No, I didn't.
I said just about 2 minutes ago.
No, what I said to you was.
You said Sinn Féin weren't averse to claiming expenses.
It was part of the whole thing that comes out. There's nobody came with that with clean hands. So I have no intention of making excuses for Nigel Dodds.
Derek, can I just move it on a little bit? Mary Lou and Arlene, what's that relationship like?
The thing about it, it's a new relationship. And look, one of the points I continually make is that basically late November 2016, there was an article that appeared in all the major Northern Ireland newspapers, co-signed by Martin McGuinness and Arlene Foster, talking about how the executive was going to move forward, how they were rejecting the small parties who were just oppositional, and that they were going to plough ahead, recognizing the differences, recognizing that they were coming from different traditions, recognizing that in certain areas they had different priorities. And that was an extremely positive article. And therefore, that point once existed and can be returned to. A lot of that was based on personal relationships, and the best personal relationship appeared to be that between Peter Robinson and Martin McGuinness. By all accounts, there was a personal trust and there was a personal respect there. I suspect it didn't exist between Martin McGuinness and Arlene Foster, and I would imagine that Arlene Foster was the cause of that breakdown. I think you're now starting with Mary Lou McDonald and Arlene Foster with virtually no relationship. But more dangerously for everyone, Arlene Foster being in a very precarious position within her own party. Yeah, so I think I did say it's not Mary Lou McDonald's fault that there's no relationship, but I just don't think there is a significance to that just at the moment. Although, Michelle O'Neill, I'm not too sure about.
I don't think.
Derek, you were sure enough about her to call her a puppet.
What?
You were sure enough about her to call her a puppet.
Well,
you did in one of your articles.
Didn't. I've never referred to her as a puppet.
You referred to Michelle and Mary Lou's puppets.
No, what I said is that Jerry Adams is still in charge.
The Chucky or
But you called them puppets.
I didn't
call those two girls puppets.
You can keep using the word in class, and I didn't use the word.
Well,
just in your article, Derek.
Well, I think.
Well, I'm going to grab it there.
Well, whatever.
Okay.
You.
No, by the way, I don't. What I'm saying to you is, there is no doubt in my mind that the power and the control has not passed from Jerry Adams and the Army Council to Mary Lou McDonald and Michelle O'Neill. No question about that. Right? Not absolutely unapologetic. That is my view.
Okay, so Mary Lou McDonald, when she says Chucky or Lar, that's to the boys up in.
It is. Look, I mean, Mary Lou McDonald knows where the power lies on Sinn Féin, and that's why she goes to the commemorations. That's why she goes and appears at these ceremonies, etc.
Yeah,
for the martyred dead and for the volunteers, etc. Because she knows that's where the power lies, and she needs to continue to them that she's on board.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you not really think that she really feels this? I mean, she's a true believer.
Oh, I don't question that.
Yeah.
I'm not calling her a charlatan. I've never questioned that. But what I've said, but in terms of, she also has to recognise that her responsibility lies to people outside the party, particularly to voters, and that's what I don't see. I don't see that reflected.
And
well, she does have Fianna Fáil connections as well, though.
Oh, I remember her well when she was in Dublin West. I knew her well back then.
Was she? She wasn't a Fianna Fáiler though, was she?
Well, she never Fianna Fáil in Dublin West.
Yeah. When Dunlop was in charge, was doing all the politicking for them.
Well, and the good old days.
Oh, well, was it actually? Wasn't that the same constituency that Kennedy was in? The guy who owns all the slot machines, and he. Let's talk about him, Derek. Can we talk about him?
Mary Lou has any association with
that? No, but I'm at well, that's when she left. I think that's Can we talk about it? Can we talk about those Fianna Fáilers? Can we talk about those Fianna Fáilers?
Sure, no problem. Please away.
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, you mentioned the constituency she was in.
Derek,
it was in Dublin West.
Well, it bodes well for a coalition then.
There isn't. Listen, I think this is absolute living proof there will be no Fianna Fáil Sinn Féin coalition.
Well, okay. This will be here for posterity, Derek. So
absolutely no, I have no fear about that. And by the way, in the same way that I said last year that there will be no Fine Gael Fianna Fáil coalition.
But yours all is. It's pretty much a coalition you have going now. This supply and confidence agreement.
Derek, is it Labour you're counting on then?
No.
Just it's going to be a single party.
No, it's not going to be a single party government. There's going to be a whole raft of independents. There's going to be Labour. There's going to be the Greens. There's going to be various others.
Yeah.
Well, at the moment, I mean, I've argued this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is at the moment the polls are showing Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael about 3 to 4 percentage points between them. And there's another 5 or 6 percentage points up for grabs, and it depends whoever's just ahead of the other.
Well, it shows Fianna Fáil haven't moved.
But you would.
Fianna Fáil haven't budged.
Fianna Fáil haven't budged in the last 6 or 7 months, no. Before then, they were consistently ahead of Fine Gael.
Derek, just in terms of joining Fine Gael, you would if the alternative was a Sinn Féin-led government.
Well, first and foremost, to be a Sinn Féin-led government, they would need to jump considerably ahead of both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
Well, kind of a rainbow coalition of a lot of parties, a lot of people, a lot of...
No, but take an interesting parallel at the moment, which is you have in Germany, is that the CDU has gone in with the SPD. What that means is that the alternative for Germany, the right-wing party, or the main opposition party, that's what happened in Austria, where they suddenly became the alternative. And there is in no one's interest for that to happen. It's neither in Fianna Fáil nor Fine Gael's interest for that to happen. So that's no.
Marcel, are you still with us?
Yeah. Sorry, Derek, that article where you referred to Michelle O'Neill as a puppet was November the 21st. It's titled Going Backstage, Not Off Stage.
Yeah, okay.
What did Derek... Oh, right. Well...
Go on, read it. What's the quote?
Michelle O'Neill is no accidental puppet.
What?
She was picked. Michelle O'Neill is no accidental puppet. She was picked specifically for the role as she knew and accepted the limits that would be placed on her.
Oh, very good.
That's...
So her party, so, she did. You're saying like she wasn't elected pretty much. She was just selected.
Well, that is. But you actually agreed then earlier that Sinn Féin had probably made a mistake by actually not having a contest, even if they
for the leadership of the party. I do from an optics point of view. I do, and I actually said it here on.
When Michelle O'Neill became leader in the North, how did she become leader? Was there a conference? When Michelle O'Neill became leader in the North, how did she become leader?
Well, they selected her to be leader.
Was there a conference?
Of the
it wasn't announced as leader.
Yeah, it did just happen, didn't it?
Well, you can say that about Brian Cowan and Micheál Martin, couldn't you?
You could exactly.
In both cases, although
this is the leadership of Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin travels both constituencies, affect both parliaments.
Yeah, but Michelle O'Neill...
Fianna Fáil doesn't. So that's okay. I'll accept that. I'll accept that. But nonetheless, she is still elected to that parliament by
She's elected to parliament. She was never elected.
When I said that they missed the opportunity, I pretty sure I was clear that they missed an opportunity from an optics point of view, not to kind of mimic the roadshow that Fine Gael had with the two boys.
Yeah.
And I think if they had that, they missed. Look, please,
there wasn't a special meeting. There wasn't anything to announce Michelle. There was a press conference.
I'm talking about the leadership of Sinn Féin, and you know I am.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Michelle O'Neill.
But you know why you...
The quote you gave me is in the context of Michelle O'Neill.
And well, do you want me to read down through the rest of it there? Because you said you didn't write it, and now we know you have.
What I said was she was no accident.
Now I was talking about the leadership election. I was talking about
Derek, Vanessa, 1 second. This isn't Castlereagh Holding Centre. I mean, for God's sake, the guy, Derek is a guest. I just want to move it on. Marcel, what the hell is happening in Germany? Forget our... we are fine compared to you.
I think I'd like to make a point. We're talking about the referendum earlier about United Ireland, and I remember like when Brexit happened, that was one of the first things that popped up in the news. Everyone was thinking, yeah, this is it now. This will automatically lead because North voted to remain. We're getting a unified Ireland now, and just the amount of discussion we had in the last 45 minutes. That's a nice sign of all the politics that people keep ignoring when they're thinking about a potential referendum. Because I personally don't think that this is going to happen. Not before March next year, not after. Just because it's all too convulsed and all too no one can call it in the end. So that's just my personal opinion. Okay. So regardless, if even Germany influences the EU insofar as to call a referendum on the United Ireland, that's not even going to happen. Yeah, it looks like we're going to get another great coalition in Germany, with the socialists at their lowest rates since, I don't know, 1932 or whatsoever. So, but still, they agreed to form a government with Merkel's party. They have to, all the members of the party have to actually vote to approve that grand coalition. But from the looks of it, that is going to happen. Just because Mr. Schulz, who was leading the party up until this week, who very loudly confirmed last year after they lost the vote that they would go into the opposition and would form the largest opposition party, just so that the AfD would not become the largest opposition party. Now they've done a complete turn now, and he was quoted in saying, "I will not ever, upon my dead body, become a member of a government led by Angela Merkel." And of course, then he was destined to become the foreign minister. So then everyone said, "No."
Think about that, Derek.
I was just, I was afraid to say in case you gave out to me for interrupting, John.
And what Marcel? Sorry, Marcel, on the ground in Germany, in terms of could you give us an Irish comparison to what's going on?
Well, how will I phrase this nicely? I think the German laborers, German socialists, they have positioned themselves as much into obscurity as Labour has in Ireland. Let's phrase it this way. So they I think on the ground, and I vote Labour or I vote Socialist for, I don't know, decades, and even now, like the theatre that they've put up now, that's made them completely irrelevant, because it's really just showing that being in a grand coalition for so long, it just makes people hungry for power and money. And no, it was really a big disappointment, I have to say.
Derek, you're just back from Germany, aren't you?
Yeah, I just went a couple of days in Munich, but I wasn't getting to talk to a lot of people locally. And what I think was fascinating was when I heard that Schulz, who initially people were saying, okay, he's now going to be the foreign minister, and suddenly he goes to a regional meeting and is eaten alive and decides that he's not going to be the foreign minister. But what people I do know in Germany have been telling me is, listen, that the one to watch is the finance minister, is the guy who's replacing Schäuble. Whose name now completely has gone out of my head for some reason, but the new socialist finance minister is the one to watch, and that he is in many areas he's on the same page as Merkel. He is very pro-business. Was he the mayor of Hamburg, or I can't remember what, or he was the regional minister, like one of the landers there. But what is fascinating is that the main opposition party in Germany is now the AfD, and I just wonder what is the ramifications of that. Do they slowly emerge as the alternative moderate politics in Germany?
Well,
or can the CDU, SPD recover ground? Clearly, that doesn't look like the SPD is going to recover much ground. The FPD, what used to be called the Liberals, the Free Democratic Party, they're still a small third, fourth. So I just can't see them making massive inroads. So it's I presume that this grand coalition that I'm hoping this, I mean, how long more has Merkel got? 2-3 years maybe?
Well, this is it. I mean, I genuinely don't think she's going to continue for some reason. I've got a funny feeling that that's not going to go on for much longer. And
well, I mean, like in all politics, there is a time to go, and it is the ability of the good politicians to know when is the right time to go. And I presume that she will not want to be hounded out of office, or she won't want the death of 1,000 cuts that many other leaders eventually have to suffer.
Yeah, does anybody want to just before we get off the subject of the North, Johnny, Marcel, or Vanessa? Do you want to, Vanessa?
Sorry, I know. Sorry, what were we going to say, John?
No, nothing, please.
No, it's just that the death of 1,000 cuts. They've been saying that about Merkel for quite some time, and about May, and yet they're still standing.
There's an interesting. There's a very interesting point in May, and I can't think the guy's name is the political correspondent for the Financial Times. One thing he says, look, that if you look at political leaders in Britain for the last couple of years, it's been one big event that has pushed them out. In May's case, it's her ability to survive these small crises that she struggles on. The best line I heard about Theresa May recently is, she's weaker than she was last year, but she's stronger than she was 2 months ago. And it is this bizarre up and down to her career. And she's an incredibly functioning politician. She has.
She is actually, and also I think that the guy that's talking about raising up the cavalry against her, Boris Johnson, is turning into be more vacuous. Like we always knew he's a buffoon, he's a bit silly, you know, but he was always able to make an argument once he memorized it hard enough and he was able to deliver on it. But I think he's starting to be seen as more and more of a windbag, and I think that's probably going in her favor. She's of more substance.
And this we can be in agreement, because the same applies to Gove. What May has going for her is that I think the people who want to replace her will want to replace her with somebody from the next generation, and they're still a few years off. And I think Theresa May has a couple of years left. I don't see a British general election anytime soon.
That's probably what's happening in Fianna Fáil.
There you go. Well, that's fair play to for turning it around. But that's grand.
Well, Derek, actually, that is something. Just briefly on that. When is there going to be an election here?
I think I had believed late last year and early this year that it was going to be before the summer. I now believe it's not going to be before the summer, and if it's not going to be before the summer, it's not going to be till early next year. And I think you're going to have in a very difficult position, which is the confidence supply agreement is up to 3 budgets. It's up to 3 budgets only. So that means you get through to the possibly the finance bill, maybe the social welfare bill, but only gets into the early part of next year. So I cannot see it going much beyond that. And I genuinely believe that Fine Gael are going to look at this next year and believe that the best time to go was 6 months ago, was around now.
But your leader must be getting very antsy.
Very nervous.
No, not nervous, strange enough. No, go on, Amy.
I think he is.
But well, there you go. Well,
because Derek, this is a unique kind of arrangement.
Yeah.
And
it's unique in Irish terms. It's not unique in European terms, but it's unique in Irish terms, yeah. And let's not. By the way, I'm not some of those people. I personally believe new politics makes sense, and I think there's a great deal of logic to it. I don't necessarily believe it's working day in and day out. It clearly
which is why you ruled out Sinn Féin. Which is why you ruled out Fine Gael and Sinn Féin. That's not new politics.
But it is, because I think people need to know where you stand. People need to know what your politics are, and people need to know what you're about. But I mean, I think new politics is about the bits between elections. New politics is about how Parliament functions. New politics is about the way that we've always traditionally done it, which is the old Westminster model, which is you elect one side, they have something close to a majority, and they rule unopposed, not so much unopposed, but they rule without any correction for 5 years. In 5 years, the government drives legislation through the Dáil, and by basically the opposition are brushed aside at each cost. That's what's changing. Because nobody will command that level of support. You're not going to have political parties in the future that have support touching the 40% mark. Both parties are going to be looking to get themselves much over 30 at any time in the future. That's why it's changed.
You seem to be contorting yourself to keep out Sinn Féin. You know.
No, really, no.
Well,
I think they'll do. I was going to say cruelly, I think they'll do it themselves, but I won't say that then.
Well, I work with a number of prominent Fianna Fáilers, and they seem to have a very, not madly different, but not as aggressive an opinion of Sinn Féin as you do.
I think most people in Fianna Fáil will be on the same page. Yeah, there are some who don't, but
I think they're more on my page than they are on your page.
So Derek, all that stuff in the Dáil is not rhetoric. I mean, Micheál Martin believes that about Sinn Féin, believes this about Mary Lou.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is no going back on that, irrespective of the numbers and the tally and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I genuinely believe that, because first and foremost, I think the one of the biggest mistakes people make is try to predict the next result now at this point. We don't know when the election is, but more importantly, we don't know what the result is. I think there is a very soft vote at the moment between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and the election campaign will decide where that ends up. I don't believe there'll be a huge gap between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael at the end of the day. Whether Fianna Fáil is a couple of seats ahead of Fine Gael or Fine Gael is a couple of seats of Fianna Fáil, I'm not too sure. But I think the numbers, both sides, with the most important or the most interesting part of the dynamic for me for the last year or 2 years has been the fact that both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael increase has both been coming up. So that where both parties together barely touched 50% a couple of years ago. Now, and this is something that they used to be at the 70% mark. They'll be up around the 60% time by the time the election comes around.
Johnny, you
I think you're banking on young people not voting again there, Derek. But you have to realise that young people are very much awake.
Oh, yeah.
And to see what way Fianna Fáil have run this country into the ground, and how they're backing up Fine Gael to run the country into the ground as well. And John, I am being respectful to our guest, and I thank you for coming on. But he is a member of Fianna Fáil, so and as you know, I give it the lash every time you're not on. So I might as well say it to you when you're here. No, but hold on a second. So like they are actually backing up. They are actually backing up Fine Gael. Like if you've seen Micheál Martin, the effort of a question he put to Vragter in accordance with the rural development, for want of a better term, which we should be actually talking about, because that's the biggest deal that's going to happen tomorrow for countries like me anyway. Like, you know, it was so weak. He's questioning, and then Sinn Féin went crazy, and rightly so, because Vragter did an Enda Kenny perfected off Bertie, just completely ignoring questions. So, you know, like there is a real situation in Dáil Éireann where Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are proven to be one side of the same kind, and I can't sit idly by while you put on a big manifesto there in relation to how the next election is going to run. Because as far as I'm concerned, and what happens should happen in Britain and Ireland, a socialist government, because that seems to be the way it's going all over the world. And I know Bertie is a socialist, so he might be coming back.
Show me the numbers that show that here.
Yeah, this is the problem, Johnny.
I don't believe the polls.
This is well, I have to say, just on the polls though, there is a problem here. I think the polls have been wrong, so badly wrong the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
It's not it's a joke. Brexit, Trump, everything. Like even the last.
But no.
But the point, my point, I think, is
actually most polls are, when you actually analyze them down, most of them are fairly close enough to it. They're not 1,000 miles off. I'm Donald Trump. They were right, but they could. Why are you guys
totally freaking out about Sinn Féin?
Not freaking out about Sinn Féin.
No, but at every opportunity. No, seriously.
John, they're scared. They're scared of having Sinn Féin dip into the decent ministries and not having the big chunky ministries for the likes of John McGuinness and all that.
I know that. But if
we're that afraid, look at Sinn Féin's record in the north.
Sinn Féin will upset the status quo. That's the main problem.
With respect to everybody, Sinn Féin aren't just running candidates in the north. They're running candidates here in Dublin South Central. They're running candidates in Dublin West. Yeah. They're running candidates in Louth. They're running candidates in Galway.
So you're asking with the record. You're asking what the record is.
You know, listen, Derek. They're running candidates in every constituency, and in some constituencies it looks like they're going to be running 2. Okay, and let those constituents decide. But the big issue is you put the Sinn Féin front bench opposite the Fianna Fáil front bench, and you put that to the electorate, and the electorate will be very quick to decide who they feel should be in health, and who they feel should be in housing, and who they think should be in environment, and who they think should be
Vanessa, that's
in finance.
That's precisely
and it won't be going the way you're shouting and roaring about.
Exactly.
If you and can I also remind you, the Sinn Féin front bench are all under 50.
Good. Well done.
But that's the beauty of democracy, isn't it, Vanessa? I mean, that's when we're having the elections, we'll see that. But
when you go for an election, you go on the basis of a platform. You also go on the basis of a record.
Well, you don't have a record, man.
Well, hang on.
They do. They do have a record. Johnny.
Have a look at the last 2 elections. In 2011, we got hammered. We got hockeyed.
Yeah, I don't know how the fuck you got back.
But the same people.
You must have rigged it. You must have rigged it, man. I don't know how you got back.
Derek is the guest.
The point I made earlier is people do not judge political parties the way they judge individuals. And political parties are based on their capacity and their capability. And people are making a different judgment. And that'll be applied to all parties. That'll be applied to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, People Before Profit.
The interesting thing about the next general election, whenever it's called, John,
when they've got people on the other side of them, because what Sinn Féin's problem here is that they also have people on the left of them who are saying, "Hang a second, these guys aren't the real deal. Yeah. These guys aren't actually socialists. These guys aren't actually."
Yeah,
and that's where Sinn Féin has a difficulty as well.
The thing about the next general election when it's called.
Yeah.
Right. is the electorate will not be as fooled as they were the last time into thinking Sinn Féin were.
So the electors are fools.
Everything that you're saying about them, they will. Well, do you know what? The run up to that election, particularly election day, and the press, the bias, RT bias, the behaviour in the debates, that did that even the day of the count, you could see where people had turned around.
Well, why did they turn
around?
They
well, I mean, they accepted, and even Jean Kerrigan absolutely didn't hold back on that Sunday about. I mean,
he never swung more than 5 votes in his life. I'll be shocked. Go on.
Excuse me?
If Jean Kerrigan had swung more than 5 votes in his life, I'll be shocked. Go on.
Oh.
Well, that's not something I
beaten the God out of Fianna Fáil in the 1980s, 90s, and 90s, and
well, you know, you came on there earlier tonight and denied you called Michelle O'Neill a puppet.
I didn't call her a puppet. I would refer to her as an accidental puppet. I accept I was wrong on that, and I shouldn't have said that.
No,
and I shouldn't have said that. But I wasn't me calling her a puppet, and I also said it in the context earlier.
Well, just going back to the next election, I think the electorate will be a lot more careful about where they cast their vote.
First of all,
they won't be taking pity on the likes of the Joan Burton, and scrape her in on the last count, and even Michael Noonan scraping through. Like, in actual fact, it was Shinner's vote that got Michael Noonan over the line in the end. And I think the electorate, and also you have a whole new body of voters coming on stream. And registering because of the referendums coming in, and I think that they will take a very different view of the candidates in front of them, and it won't be party. They won't be voting party lines. They will look at the candidates in front of them.
Well, that has, by the way, that's been a trend in politics for the last decade and a half. And it's something that the polls don't pick up. That is something where I agree.
Well, I would disagree with you there in the last election, because so many old timers got through when they opened the boxes on the first count, Noonan was gone and Burton was gone, and the whole body of that previous government. And in the end, it was transfers.
Half that government
flaky transfer movements.
Sorry, half the government lost its seats. Fine Gael and Labour went into that election with twice the number of seats that came out of it. Labour took the bulk of that blow, but they lost half their seats. So you can't turn around and say a load of fogies from that government all survived. Half them was the biggest, bar what happened to Fianna Fáil in 2011. It was the biggest thing. And that is going to, I accept, that's going to be the trend for the future. There are going to be big shifts from election to election. No question about that.
Yeah, but
I think
we need to move on a bit, Vanessa. Hang on, sorry. Sorry, Johnny.
In relation to all this, you're changing Fine Gael for Fianna Fáil. I thought Fianna Fáil. I'm not no disrespect, but I know some great people involved in Fianna Fáil, but most of them are dead. But like, who's going to win the propaganda?
I have X-rays. I'm okay. I can hang on for a while.
Who's going to win the propaganda? Because that's what it all boils down to, really. The last few months of an election. So basically, what I'm getting to, how much of mainstream media have Fianna Fáil got the contacts with that Fine Gael don't? Because that seems to be what it all boils down to. Most of the people believe that.
I know the point. I take the point you're getting at, Marcel. I actually think Ireland we're not unique. But politics here is local, and that the contactability of TDs and politicians to their voters is far more intense here than surely that it is in Britain, and certainly not across Europe. So it isn't always been mediated through the traditional media, through the Irish Independent, the Irish Times, or the Evening Herald, or whatever, or through RTE or TV3. And social media has an impact on it. A whole range of different media has an impact on it. There are a whole range of influencers, and that's to the good. But it isn't the idea that a certain newspaper is the sworn avowed supporter of a certain political party doesn't really make a huge amount of difference, because people buy the newspaper knowing that's already its bias, and they factor that in. Do not underestimate the intelligence of the electors as a body.
Derek,
I'm glad you said that, Derek. I'm glad you said that. Don't underestimate the intelligence of the electorate.
Derek, I was going to talk to Johnny about RTE actually in a different sort of guise about having an alternative music sort of show on the thing. But I find listening to the radio RTE over the last 8 years, 9 years doing the site or whatever, the anti-Sinn Féin bias is unreal. I mean, by any measurement, by any, really, no. I have to say, I listen to almost every single show, Derek.
I disagree with that, not in terms of its context, but I actually think there is no shortage of Sinn Féin spokespeople on the media. There's no shortage of them. They're on the panels. They're on the shows.
Well, yes, but yes and no. And when they are, watch how they're treated. They're treated differently on every single. To Sean O'Rourke, Morning Ireland, the tone goes down, and it's like no messing with these people. Whereas with and it is so obvious.
But I'm not actually. I really don't buy into that. I'm
not. You obviously don't listen to RT then. You obviously don't listen to RT.
I do. There is no shortage of. I mean, the whole thing about it is that Sinn Féin get a fair shake of airtime in terms of the volume of it or the quantity of it, and then some.
But Derek,
I would argue that Fianna Fáil does not per get its airtime, but that's a different matter.
For instance, like say last weekend, Pierce Doherty on Marion Finucane. Marion Finucane just does not speak to the people like that.
By the way,
she'd never talk to Michael Colgan that way.
Jesus, she should have him on, but if she ever did have him on,
I will accept that there is an issue with on.
You'd be safe, I'd say.
Yeah, sorry, Derek.
No, I accept. I mean, I do actually have a problem the way the Marion Finucane show is structured. So I mean, I'm not going to disagree on that.
Yeah, well, I think
I think some people get a very cozy treatment.
She loves having Mary O'Rourque.
I don't believe Fianna Fáil get a terribly cozy treatment on Marion Finucane either. That's a separate matter.
And then on Sean O'Rourke, who's brilliant, actually, he's a brilliant broadcaster. Yeah. But I mean, the guy hates Sinn Féin, and in fact, I'm going to say,
in fact, I don't believe he hates Sinn Féin. No, he has a disdain for Sinn Féin.
Derek,
he has for both sides.
Well, Joe Duffy definitely does.
Let me explain, Derek. Yeah. I think gentlemen of perhaps our era, maybe you're a little bit older than me, Derek.
Yeah.
There's a visceral hatred of Sinn Féin IRA, provisional IRA. That is.
Oh no, there's no doubt that we are coloured by what we knew and etc. Yeah.
But I hear that.
But it is not bad journalism for somebody to say, listen, by the way, this is your history. Stop disavowing it. Stop trying to pretend to people out there that this is not your history.
It's very difficult.
Okay.
It's very difficult to conduct an interview when you're being treated with contempt. Verbal.
Yeah. Wait a second. Whoa. I even remember Fianna Fáil a long time. I'm used to this. I mean, this happens. I don't think there's a.
But it shouldn't.
Yeah, but Sinn Féin
are. It's not saying there is 100%.
Derek,
right.
Sinn Féin are an opposition party, and they're treated like some kind of wild animals. But
it does come back to the thing, which is, look, Sinn Féin are in terms of social media, etc., are fairly go after journalists, and if they feel that their people haven't been treated fairly, through named accounts and through unnamed accounts, they go after journalists. And there is a backlash to that. Now, I don't think that is highly professional. I think journalists have to be able to stand above that. But you cannot kind of say that Sinn Féin are some shrinking violets who are sitting there and people are throwing stones at them and this is all dreadful and nasty. No, there are two sides to this. There are two areas to this. And I firmly believe that in terms of the Sinn Féin is getting more than its airtime, more than its fair share of airtime. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying it's a statement that they get airtime, they're not being ignored. And when they're on, do they get a rough handling? Possibly they do, possibly they don't. But at least they're on the goddamn airwaves. They're not been blocked off it.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised
if they can stand the ground. They can stand the ground.
Johnny, sorry.
I'd be very surprised if anyone in RT votes Sinn Féin, because they know in their heart and souls that if Sinn Féin do get into government and they have a minister in charge of RT, they're gone. Marion Finucane's gone.
Derek, I have to say,
no, I think if Sinn Féin got the department if Sinn Féin got the Department of Communications and Industry, whatever it is now, I think if Sinn Féin got that ministry, what is it, communication, industry and communications or whatever, it'll be called something else after the next election. I actually do think they'll run it very professionally. in much the same way Martin McGuinness ran education when he that post.
Yeah,
and I don't believe I don't believe they'll be the jobs for the boys more commonly known with your own organisation, Derek.
No, but there'll be an ordinary industrial. Hold on a second. It'll be an ordinary industrial wage, Vanessa. So that means that Ryan Tuberty and Joe Duffy will not be sticking around for an industrial wage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think they'll take a professional business. I think they'll take it. I think they're capable of taking a business and a professional approach to it. Yeah, and I think they'll see everybody on the merits. I think they're a lot more capable of that than Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil or Labour.
Derek,
or even a few of those independents.
Derek, aren't you delighted you came tonight? Welcome to our house.
I left a bloody dinner for this. Go on.
Who are you in bed with, Derek? Who are you in bed with?
Fine Gael.
It's like I won't be allowing who I'm in bed with be decided by a vote of the panel tonight.
Derek, you mentioned that you didn't want to get off early, so
yep. Now that I'm kind of not too bloodied and not too bad, I can go quietly. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
There's no problem.
Actually, Derek, before you go, can I ask if Fianna Fáil have wrapped up all their conventions?
No, far from it. We'll go through to happen yet. I
tell you what I know. I know they were told all the straightforward ones were told to be completed before the end of September, and I know in mid-January, all the iffy ones where there might be, Bishop Blackgarden, they were all ordered to have theirs by, now I was told the 9th of February. I'm not sure one has gone ahead, but just to keep it all quiet.
What do you mean keep it all quiet?
Out of the press.
What do you mean?
There's going to be a few very. I happen to know two constituencies where there's going to be serious Fianna Fáil argy-bargy.
Good. That's actually good. That's a healthy situation.
That's what that.
Well, it is good, but it'll be interesting to see who wins out.
People would want it. That's a healthy situation.
Is Mary Hanafin involved in this? Because if Mary Hanafin's involved, I don't know.
That convention's already sorted.
She's in, is she?
She's selected.
She's selected.
Yeah.
It's like Jim O'Callaghan is shitting himself.
Convention's happened in Dublin Bay South. You know Dublin Bay South has happened.
And tell us who is.
You know that Dublin Bay South has happened.
Who's Fianna Fáil looking at in Tipperary? Because I've heard you've contacted a former minister to see what his son won.
Larry Jr.
No, I think
Michael Smith's son. Larry Jr. is running for Fine Gael. So there's two Larry seats there.
There's a Larry Jr. and then there's another
Larry Senior.
Son, right.
Yeah, but there's a Larry Party.
Larry Senior will be running as an independent, and obviously Larry Jr. for Fine Gael will have a nice little chunk of transfers. It's a Healy Ray thing, but I know Fianna Fáil have been canvassing somebody, but Mary Hanafin could run in Tipperary.
Oh, for heaven's sake. You really are. This is, there used to, what was the thing? There used to be an old Cogger website.
That's where she's from originally.
Yeah,
that was her father's base. Turles was her father's base.
But he never got elected there. He was a senator.
Do you remember Cogger?
Come here. You clearly don't know Tipperary politics.
I don't claim to know Tipperary politics. I'm based in Dublin. I'm a Dub.
Derek's the Brexit guy as well.
But I'm a Dublin. Hang a second. My point here is Mary Hanafin is a councillor in the area I'm living, which is Blackrock, and she's been she's been added to the ticket here in Dunleary. So there's two candidates here. So the ticket's closed. Move on. I don't know what kind of misinformation or fake news you're trying to get out there, but will you up the quality of it so that at least it's halfway credible? You seriously want to talk about fake news? And you want to talk about fake news? Why don't you tell us why Jim O'Callaghan really came out against the repeal of the 8th? Go on. Why don't you tell us the truth about it? You want to talk about fake news? Let's talk about Jim O'Callaghan. You clearly have something on your head. Go on.
No. You've just accused me of stirring up fake news. So because you said that
Mary Hanafin's going to run in Tipperary.
No, I said she could. That's
Okay,
what I
so
said. You were probably shouting over me at the time, Derek.
Or not? Come on.
You were probably shouting over me at the time.
The Jim O'Callaghan thing.
It's the only way I can get a word in. Come on.
Yeah. The Jim O'Callaghan thing. Don't say what it is if it's defamatory.
It's not. It's not. It's about my best of my knowledge. With Jim O'Callaghan, who's a very good friend of mine and is somebody who I'm happy to support and happy to canvass for, has said that he has a problem with 12 weeks.
Because
no, it was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It was the Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. Yeah.
The 9 weeks, isn't it? The 9 weeks.
And wasn't it Jim that also said that Sack Fitzgerald or We're Walking? It wasn't Micheál Martin at all. It was Jim.
Jim O'Callaghan did the interview on the news on the Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't Micheál.
It's a spokesperson of Justice. What's your point?
Do I need? Sorry, do I need to make a point?
Yeah, it'd be nice if you did. Yeah,
I've just said it. Just Jim O'Callaghan said it, and he's got a lot more than the 12 weeks are going on.
Eric, I think Vanessa's suggesting that Jim is like Brutus. You know, he's trying to get in there. He's going to make a leadership challenge.
No.
Vanessa, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Well, then, Vanessa, say it.
Yeah,
I wanted you to say it. I wanted you to say it, Derek.
Why would I say it if it's not true? I'm not you. I don't say things that I just make up.
I wouldn't put up.
Can I ask a question, John?
Yeah, by the way, sorry.
Of course.
Derek, it's a serious question now.
Okay.
Because this is the second time you're on, and hopefully you'll be on again because you're willing to fight your corner, and you are an advisor to Fianna Fáil. So this is a serious question.
No. I was advisor to Fianna Fáil. I'm not now. I'm not an advisor.
Okay. Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
No. You're not.
You're a Fianna Fáil member.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and as I say, it's a serious question. So I don't want to be putting you on the spot, but because you're here, I feel the need to ask it because I've been following this story for the last while, especially this week. Stardust, the 48 people that died, their families are looking for an inquiry, and you're familiar with the situation and what they're looking for. So, can you envisage or can you see or will you advocate to Fianna Fáil that there should be an inquiry?
To the best of my knowledge, they do. To the best of my knowledge, I could be wrong on that, but to the best of my knowledge, we have.
Yeah, but will it be compared to Ireland's Hillsborough?
Okay, yeah.
That's fairly serious, isn't it?
There is Derek. I think what Johnny's getting at is there is kind of a Fianna Fáil cover-up being around this in terms of the owner being a friend of Hoy. It was in Hoy's.
And you're right that those insinuations.
And I just want to go on to the next one, which is even probably a bit more important because. Ronan Keane was appointed to lead the inquiry.
Yeah,
he was the.
There's an association there.
Yeah, he was the wife of Hoy's mistress.
His wife was,
or the husband of Hoy's mistress. So,
but he was also a judge of impeccable quality and character.
Yeah, but part of the kind of justice is to the perception that this seemed to be done, but. So it was a bit of a mess back then, wasn't it, with the Stardust?
I don't know enough to start going into detail on the rest of it. If I know what's coming up, I would have kind of briefed myself a little.
Sorry, yeah.
No, and it's not.
I apologize.
No. I'm not.
And it's the weed that's in it as well.
No. I'm not looking for a get out of jail card on this, right? Certainly, I mean, even with the time I was in government, I know there were officials in the Department of Taoiseach who were liaising with the families, etc. And there was an attempt, as far as possible, to see what could be done and what could be done. The problem with these situations, and I think this is a general point, and this is something that I would have dealt with in having dealt with a couple of situations in government where we were dealing with people, the families of victims on various things, is that there's a tendency for the law to take over in these situations and to become a very adversarial, where the government feels it must defend itself because it's afraid it's going to be open to court cases, and that the institution feels it must protect and say, listen, that's as much facts as we can give you. I don't believe that is trying to cover up. I don't believe there is an attempt to cover up. But I think that there is at times there is kind of, look, we've told you everything. We asked this as often as you can. And now we just need everyone to move on. And I think that's been coming across on the Stardust thing. I don't believe it is the situation. And I think if it is necessary, if under the current circumstances, it's right to have a public inquiry. I don't think anyone should be afraid of that, and I don't think anyone, Fianna Fáil certainly, has anything to fear from that.
Okay. I mean, Johnny, are you happy with that answer?
Yeah. Thanks, Derek. And as I said,
Derek.
didn't know they want to put you on the spot. Yeah.
Oh no, it's okay. No. Look, it's a fair point. It's a totally fair point, and there's a lot of things from the past that we still have to learn to come to terms with. And there's a lot of things that, in terms of the way things were dealt with in the 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever it was, that it was an earnest attempt by people at the time, but that their bigger motivation was protecting the system at all costs and protecting infrastructural, not so much the infrastructure, the institutions. And I think we've now grown beyond that. And I think that therefore some things that now can be looked at in a way that they weren't looked at back in the 60s. Problem is time has moved on, and not all the people are around, not all the witnesses are there, etc. But I mean, look, there is no question that there are 50 people who never got a proper answer. And it goes back to what I said in terms of Stephen Travers. A lot of people just want the truth. It is the truth they want. I want to know what happened. And that is not an unreasonable thing for people to ask.
That's very
not an official version. And the official version tends to be glossed up. I don't want to go into specifics of it. I remember dealing with a situation many years ago where, for the best of all possible motives, an individual was told, here are the circumstances in which this event happened. And they were sanitized, and a story was created around it. It wasn't to protect anyone. It wasn't to defend anyone. It was almost to comfort the family. And what had never dawned on them was the family was going to find out little bits of information, and the whole thing imploded.
Yeah.
And they then became convinced that there was not so much a conspiracy, but something else had happened. And it took a long time for them to realize that the actual truth was the truth when it emerged. And it's a really painful situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And asking people to live with that is really difficult. So therefore, on that one, I have no difficulty, I have no problem with that.
Hello, Olga, by the way. Sorry, Olga's just joined us. She was in town doing a shift, I gather. No. It means a different thing. It's
north of Cork. It means. Listen, I definitely have to go with this. Unfortunately, I don't
sure.
run away. Okay?
Just we're going to talk about the redress for the victims of clerical abuse, and I did want to talk about the legality of the indemnity deal, but that's probably for another night.
It is, but I mean, like there's an interesting thing that I'm not involved with locally. It's a bit further away, which is there's a school out here in Blackrock where the Christian Brothers are looking to sell the land around it and to sell the fields, because they need to sell the fields, according to them, to pay off the indemnity deal.
Clunking.
But by doing that, they're going to completely banjax the local school. And there's a lot of games been played around with this, a huge amount of games.
That's why it's called damages.
Yeah.
And Luke has joined us as well. Luke from Portugal. Derek, thank you so much. Sorry.
No problem.
It's sometimes it can be a passionate house we have here. And
no problem at all. Listen. I have no problem with passion.
You're gonna get
why? Does Derek look shocked, John, to you?
No.
Well,
exactly.
No. He looks invigorated.
He's just had a workout. He's delighted.
Vanessa, neither do you, and I feel heartbroken that I didn't manage to shake your confidence. And I'll come back again next time to make sure I do. There we go.
Oh, you're trying to? Is that a threat?
No, it's a promise.
Promise. Derek, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Take care. Myself. Good night. Bye.
Thanks, Derek.
Very nice to have Derek. That's Derek Mooney. He's a columnist with Broadsheet, and he's an excellent column today about the Northern Ireland, the breakdown, and all those talks. And Olga.
Oh yeah, how's it going?
Hi. How are you?
I haven't done the papers. Do you want me to do the papers?
No, I'll do the papers. But perhaps you could, Luke. Hello, Luke from Portugal.
Hey, Luke.
His beard is growing exponentially with our shows. Olga, perhaps you can talk a little bit about the Disclosures Tribunal.
Sure. So this week there was the submissions took place on Tuesday. So these were just basically kind of the legal teams for the different parties kind of wrapping up their kind of arguments in relation to the TUSLA module, which was on in the summer. So this is the bit where they discussed this, the creation of this false rape allegation against Maurice McCabe and how that came about and how it was circulated between TUSLA and the guards. And so essentially TUSLA and the guards kind of said, look, it was just a series of errors and that's all it was. And McDougall for McCabe argued differently. And just to explain, so we all know there was an allegation made in 2006. It was investigated. The DPP completely dismissed it. If I can paraphrase, if I can just kind of truncate it down to that. And then 7 years later, Miss D goes to, this is the girl who made the allegation, Miss D goes to a counselling session. She repeats the claim that she had made previously. The counsellor, a HSE counsellor, takes a note. There's 2 sessions apparently, and she takes a note and she makes a referral to TUSLA. So she sends it to TUSLA, and she made a big error because she is somewhat of a copy and paste error, but it's not exactly a copy and paste error, but something of a copy and paste error. And she mixed Miss D's allegation with that of a woman called Miss Y, who actually had made an actual rape allegation. But when her name is Laura Brophy, the counsellor, when Laura Brophy sent this botched referral, she referred to Miss D twice and Miss Y twice. So it was completely, mistaken. But anyway, it was sent to TUSLA and it sat there for a year, from August 2013, till April 2014. And that's when we've been told to believe on the part of TUSLA that TUSLA plucked it out of a cabinet file on April 30th, 2014 and sent it to the guards. And essentially, by the end of May, that false rape allegation was with the Garda Commissioner's office, and it sat there until earlier last year. But the person who took that file out of the cabinet, her name is Laura Connolly, and a social worker, and she managed to create a referral that never referred to Miss Y, even though Miss Y was named in it twice. And so she rewrote it, and it wasn't a copy and paste error, this one, at all. So McDougall argued that, he said that McCabe accepted that the initial mistake in 2013, as grievous as it was a mistake, partly because she had made this written referral, which was a mistake, but she had given an oral referral on the phone, which was correct, right? But in 2014, when it went to the guards via TUSLA, it was even worse, if you like, right? And he's arguing that that was not a random act, and he named 3 people within TUSLA that he says he kind of asked, but he basically asked the judge to find that some other evidence was untrue. And so he's arguing that in April 2014, Paul Williams from the Irish Independent wrote a series of articles, I think it was 4, and he wrote articles, he didn't name Maurice McCabe, but the articles were based on an interview he did with Miss D, where she was complaining about that she wasn't happy with this investigation that had taken place in 2006, blah, blah, blah. And so we know those articles appeared. She made a complaint to GSOC on the 29th of April 2014, and then this file was plucked out of this cabinet on the 30th and sent to the guards and sent and all the rest. So McDougall is arguing that that was not random at all, and he's asking the judge to categorically reject that. And he also was very critical of 2 other people, one person called Eileen Argue and a man called Jerry Lowry, who, funnily enough, were somewhat involved with the 2006-2007 allegation and how when that first came into TUSLA. And this is his argument. This should never really have been sent to TUSLA because it had already been dealt with. It had already been dealt with in 2006-2007. But second of all, it should never have gone to the guards, even if Laura Connolly got it right, let's say, and just dealt with the 2006 thing, it still should never have gone to the guards because it had already been investigated, blah, blah, blah. And also McDougall made the point that there were certain things in her referral that she must have only got from another file where she would have seen that it had been gone to the guards already. So, but his argument is that there was a post-it note on the file, and Eileen obviously goes without saying, I guess. Eileen Argue and Laura Connolly have pretty much no recall. So when they give evidence, they couldn't remember much. if in anything at all. But it would seem that based on a post-it note that was on the file, that Eiling Argue told Laura Connolly to do this, take that file and send it to the guards, whatever, and also take out create 4 intake documents on Mars's then 4 children, 2 of whom were adults. So this is TUSLA, this is the child organisation. It was highly unusual to make 2 intake forms on 2 adult children. So again, I don't want to be boring everyone, but essentially McDougall was like, this was not random. He did say he wasn't going to go as far as saying there was a smoking gun and the guards rang TUSLA and said, deal with this. But he said that in the basis that there was articles in the Irish Independent, Mars McKay wasn't named, but people would have known who he was. There was this GSOC complaint went in the day before that the file was plucked out and sent on. So he's saying that it was not random at all. So even though there were some headlines in the papers this week where, you know, it was suggested that he accepted the TUSLA error, no, he accepted the councillor had made it grievous, but it would seem an honest mistake originally. But it was the second mistake which was way more grievous, and that was TUSLA, and they don't accept that at all as being. So that's where they stand with that module, and so we don't know whether Charlton is going to kind of create a report out of this module before he hears everything else.
Yeah, he was very opinionated.
I hope he doesn't, because I think it'll become clearer next module. The next module might bring things a bit together. Because
he had a lot to say, didn't he, in terms of
McDougall? Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
And then Charlton as well. Charlton did. Yeah, he had a lot of questions. You know, he kind of he was like, how am I supposed to believe error after error after error? Like, there were certain Gardaí just did not do certain things. And also in relation to TUSLA, in relation to the TUSLA module, in 2013, when that councillor's wrong referral went to the guards, first went to TUSLA, Ciara McClone, a TUSLA social worker, she saw that file and she emailed or wrote one or the other, I think it was a letter, she wrote to Noel Cunningham, because she knew that he had done the first investigation. So she wrote to him, but Noel Cunningham never responded to the letter. And so if he had responded, that would have been, the matter would have been over with, because Noel Cunningham would have been like, no, this is incorrect, there's been a mistake, but that didn't happen. And also in May 2014, when this went to the guards, and then it was discovered that it was a mistake, and it was sent to the Garda Commissioner's office. The person who sent to the Garda Commissioner's office never corrected Noreen O'Sullivan. We talked about this last week. And that there was a meeting then in July between these certain guards who knew it was a mistake. They had a meeting. They never told Morris. No.
And Morris didn't know until early 2016, after the O'Higgins Commission investigation. So McDougall argued that at that meeting there was no kind of language as to, in the minutes of the meeting, there was no kind of like, oh my God, what have we done to an innocent man? Or it was more that they used words like suspect. There was questions about, was he a risk to his own children, and all the rest of it. But at that meeting, Charlton made the point, and also McDougall made the point, that Noel Cunningham should have been at that meeting. And why wasn't he at that meeting? Because if he had been at that meeting, he obviously again would have corrected. Because he investigated the original allegation, and as Judge Charlton said, it was a model investigation. He's seen the full file, and he said he thinks that Noel Cunningham's original investigation would have been something that you would have shown in school, like a teaching exercise, like a perfect case study of how to do an investigation. So there's question marks as to, well, why wasn't Noel Cunningham called in for that meeting, you know?
Well,
so yeah.
And the amnesia is pretty ever present, isn't it? I mean, all the
the amnesia for Eiling Argue was remarkable. It was just, I think we did a post on it last summer. It was just like no recollection. I can't remember. It was.
And in the tribunal, because Olga's, you're there, and tweaking like mad. Are people kind of like, geez, I mean, are people just putting their heads in their hands?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Certainly when it comes to the no recall, it's just a case of, come on, I mean, in regards to like Laura Connolly, so this woman who made this mistake, right, who way worse than the councillor, let's say. This is when she, rewrote this whole thing. She was never told. She was never told about what she did until the tribunal. Until she actually spoke to the tribunal's investigators. She was never told. So this was another point that MacDougall made. It was a case of, you made a mistake, you were told about it within 2 weeks. There was never, ever any kind of internal inquiry as to what happened. There was nothing committed to paper. There was nobody brought in comparison to the first councillor, Laura Brophy. Apparently, when she found out, there was an immediate action taken and there was an attempt to retrieve it and all sorts. But with Tusla, it was just a case of absolutely nothing happened.
I want to say hello to Luke and stuff. Anything else you pressing that we need to say on the disclosures? They're back tomorrow? Not tomorrow, no.
No. So we're not sure actually what day they're back. There's a date floating around, but I have no idea how true it is. March 5th. So that'll be so maybe 2 weeks or so, but 2 or 3 weeks. But we know that's when Morris is going to give his evidence. So that'll be and we're still working on a timeline of what we heard just in the past module. It's still taking a lot of time, but it is interesting when you read back and just kind of tease it all out.
It's all in the transcripts, as we'd say. Thanks a lot, Olga. Really, thanks so much for going to the down to Dublin Castle. Luke, hello.
How are we doing?
Are you just now? Luke is in Porto, in Portugal.
Luke was feeling sorry for Derek Mooney. He had to carry
I was just coming on. I was going to come on with both guns blazing. I was going to take him out. And he sensed I was coming, and he just did a legger.
You're going to finish him off.
Yeah.
Well, you were teaching tonight. You're painting.
No, I wasn't teaching. I was being taught. I have a class that just have my first go at oil painting. So yeah, it's.
Have you got a painting there?
Yeah. We have a look at the one from last week, Luke.
I had a feeling you're going to do that. So
it's on the fridge.
Where is it? If I can work out how to screen share, I can show you.
Oh, I can give you your screen sharing
capability.
Yeah, like.
So.
Oh my God! Did you do that?
I did do that. I'm as surprised as anyone else.
No way.
Yeah, I know.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
That's
copy
a paintbrush. You're acting the bollocks now. That's incredible.
That's my first oil painting. I mean, I've always drawn a little bit, so I'm very happy with how that's turning out.
It should be. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Who's the character in it?
He's the hipster in Dublin, isn't he? That guy.
It's a copy of a head from the Velasquez painting.
Right. Yeah,
no, it's nice.
Velasquez.
Probably, I'd say the highlight of my week, though, has actually been the arrival of this.
No.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to that.
Is it any good? Come here, is it any good?
No, sorry. Unfortunately, that's bad news.
You hold up the cover. Lucas, that's Babushka's Journey, which is written. Can we have that? You say something.
So so there you go. That's the cover of.
What does it say about Marcel inside it?
This is Marcel Kruger's book about.
Well, Marcel Kruger tells this compelling story of his grandmother from her life in East Prussia to her captivity in Stalin's Gulag, both as voyage of discovery and through the eyes of an eyewitness. We are in his debt.
Wow. Thank you.
Now I've only read about a third of it, but well done, Marcel. You've really done a fantastic job there. It's a really lovely book. It's a story that really deserves telling. I'm sure you don't need to be told that. But you handled it very sensitively. She was obviously someone who was very important to you, and it really comes through with your voice in writing is very authentic and sincere, and it really is a joy to read.
Oh. Thanks very much. Much appreciated.
Just you're the 2 years shaming. Well, it's definitely shaming me anyway. I've no artistic temperament at all.
Well, you have a temperament.
Come here, John.
You're not behind words.
John, you're not behind the door yourself.
Oh God, no. I certainly have my moments. Johnny, Luke, that's a lovely tribute. Luke, is your mother still there?
She is, yeah. My mother and my aunt are visiting. I was saying that last week, and actually last night she gave a demonstration with this crowd the paint group. They have a little art school just up the road here from me, and so she gave a demonstration there's about 25 people turned up on a wet night here in Porto, and my brother Fergal had made a short film about my mum and her work, and so we showed that on the projector, and then she gave a sort of throwing demonstration, and they were all very happy. So, and my mum's in her element when she's like showing off.
That's fantastic. Is she impressed with your art?
Yeah, she's very thrilled. She's very happy. She's like, her mother was actually a painter as well. So I mean, like, the standard is very high. So
you didn't lick it off the ground then, Luke?
Well, that's it. Yeah. No,
and Luke, are you enjoying Porto? I mean, is it nice to have it?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a really, I mean, things like that, like having the art school down the road, and even, sort of doing the thing that I suppose, like any situation, it's about sort of getting out and in there. And I was like doing that thing last night, and I was sort of helping introduce my mum and stuff like that. And then I was talking to people afterwards, and some very lovely people sort of invite me out for lunch next weekend, and just all this sort of thing that you sort of, if you're contributing, trying to do stuff, it sort of comes back in a healthy way. And so just really enjoying meeting some lovely people, and changing things around, and enjoying trying to sort of learn the language as well. I've been doing some intensive Portuguese lessons, so that's sort of a nice sort of different spin.
And you can legally smoke doobies if you were a doobie guy, like, if you were into that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I sort of, I've sort of,
it's not your thing, isn't that what you're trying to say?
For me anymore, yeah. So
when are you having us over then? When are you having us all over then?
There's an open invitation, Vanessa, particularly for you. There's I've got a room upstairs with Vanessa's room.
Johnny, I wanted to get to you because Johnny, you've got a piece in tomorrow in Broadsheet about.
Nice one, John.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, will you show your T-shirt? Because it looks like you're a priest, but then suddenly you're.
Yeah, I thought it was Father Johnny there for a minute.
Well, if you stand,
I'll protect you from safe sex.
Art disruptor.
Art disruptor. That's exactly what it says on the T-shirt.
Yeah. So,
you know what about that, Luke and Marcel? I'm just an art facilitator, even though I haven't read your book yet, Marcel, but it's on my to-do list, which is quite long. But
Johnny, you've written a column for tomorrow, and you've mentioned, is it Dave Cabali?
Derek Cabby.
Derek.
Yeah, he's probably one of the most unsung voices in Irish music, Irish contemporary music, which is his specific genre is reggae and ska. That's where he's come from, all the way from Kilbarrack, which is Barrytown, to any what's his face? Roddy Doyle. Yeah. So Derek was amazing guy. I came across him first in 2001. With King Sativa. I was looking to book. I had booked the Back Doors, a great band from Wicklow, a Doors tribute band, and I said to the lads, "Is there a Bob Marley tribute act?" He says there is. They're in Dublin, and they're quite prominent. They sell out the Olympia at the drop of a spliff, and I says, "Right, so have we got a number?" And I talked to them. I says, "Can I bring down Catch a Fire," which was the name of the tribute band? And we talked about money, and I says, "Did you do any original stuff?" So he says, "Yeah, we're King Sativa." And I said, "Great, come down." So I had them down, and that was the first time I met them. And they just blew my mind. They were really of the zeitgeist at the time. talking about corrupt politicians, and Fianna Fáil were very much in power around then. And they were just talking about the situation of what they've seen in everyday life, and they made it into a nice kind of a reggae vibe, and made it go down really well with a good swagger, and but really sound serious heads, I found. And 2018, Derek is still at it. You know, the Kings of Tiva have disbanded, but he started the Bionic Rats.
Yeah.
I've seen that. They're brilliant.
Yeah, they supported UB40 down in Waterford, yeah. And, like, you know, they would have, down through the years, Kings of Tiva and Bionic Rats, they would have supported Jimmy Cliff, Max Romeo, Sly and Robbie. And I don't think they came from Jamaica. The boys would have supported. But they always had their own idea in relation to what they wanted to do from a music perspective, but very much ingrained in relation to Irish culture and talking about what was real to them. And I found that it's absolutely shocking, disgraceful, the amount of money that they put into their albums in relation to recording and gigging and stuff. And then it's just, these are just one acts. I don't know. Are you picking up that? Is that coming across bad? The sound right?
You sound fine. Go on.
Okay. Yeah, just I suppose to sum it up really, John, in relation to the article, is because I know Derek very well, and I see with an awful lot of people, his contemporaries as well, that have been around a long time. And he's 26 years in the game. And to actually just be a real serious musician, to be just doing pub gigs, and I don't mean they're just doing pub gigs, but, you know, because they play for free, they probably can't charge for Vicar Street at this stage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And radio stations won't play them because they're a little bit, I don't know what radio stations are looking for, but I know back in the 70s when the Sex Pistols and Bob Geldof, Boomtown Rats, if his music wasn't played, you know, would we have heard anything about him today, which might be a good thing for some people? But I in relation to what rock and roll is essentially about, I think there is an agenda, a political agenda again, in relation to keep real music away from the radio stations. And it is important because you can say, well, the underground scene is massive. But the underground scene doesn't put bread on the table, you know? These guys are professionals in every aspect of their life, so they should be treated as professionals.
Yeah. Well, John, just to come to the point of the piece tomorrow is that, like, there's nobody playing alternative Irish music. There's nobody playing Irish music effectively. I mean, it's just the hits, and that's about it.
You've got specialised shows. You got Roddy Clear down in KCLR, a gentleman from Waterford, from Kilkenny, living in Waterford, but he's got a show every Sunday, and he really lives it and loves Irish music. But that's a regional radio station. I'm basically looking at RT, the people who have the money, who are paid for by the license payer. I don't believe that the people that, like me, and I think there's many, I'd say everyone on the panel, I don't pretend to speak on behalf, but there isn't enough rock and roll. There isn't enough music that resembles the life we live. If you look at 60s America, the counterculture, you had MC5, you had the Doors, you had the Beatles, you had Zeppelin, you had the Stones, the Byrds. Like they were all talking about, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Yardbirds. You know, it was unbelievable, the soundtrack of that time. But you'd be forgiven that everything is hunky dory. The music needs to resemble the society we live in, and RTE has a mandate, not a mandate, but has to give something to. Sorry, lads, that noise. Are you getting it? You get that noise, no?
It's fine now.
Okay, right, yeah.
Oh.
It's very hard to kind of talk over it. But the point is, John, that RT have done nothing, and they're getting progressively worse. When I was moshing out 91, 92, you had the Orange, Electric Orange or something, and you had After the Commitments, you had Jimmy Rabbit. What's his name? The guy who played him. Robert Arkin.
Yeah.
On the waterfront, you know, they were recorded live in Dublin. So in relation to this new rural development, I would put the plea now while I have the platform to Leo, who I'm sure is tuning in, and obviously RT are tuning in exactly how you handle a real conversation and real contributors that are real people. They're not getting paid, but are here because we're positive and we believe in the big picture. Is like, can RTE build a studio in the middle of the bog and I'll do the rest? Give us a few 100,000. You don't have to give me 5 million like you're giving the communication clinic. Just give me a few 100,000. I will have the best kick-ass show that will rock the country and will give a platform to real artists who are real people. And, I want to start a conversation about it, Vanessa and John.
Yeah, so I was saying, would you not consider doing a podcast?
Or we'll
I think so. We talked about doing something on a Friday night, but I don't think that's a good night because if any musician that's worth their salt is out on a Friday night. So I was thinking on Monday moods or maybe Weed Wednesday, something like that. I
was thinking 2 a.m. Saturday morning.
Okay, yeah, when they're just coming in. It's like the word.
Exactly, and then Luke can join us maybe, and if he wants to have a doobie, he can, legally. Yeah. lucky thing.
I think the Porto boys are having the doobie on Wednesday against Liverpool.
They are.
5-0 it was. But you had Salah. Sorry, it never grows old.
This is a Richie song. Marcel.
Which is being released tomorrow, actually, by the way. So go out and check it out. And it's for a woman in Mexico. The proceeds for the song Salah. It's being released tomorrow. Friday is the 16th of So keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Definitely. Proceeds going to his Mexican girlfriend.
No. There's a woman in Mexico that needs the money for something serious.
Right.
I don't know off the top of my head. But
the actor that played Jimmy Rabbit was Robert Arkins. Is that right? Is that the guy? Yeah.
I am the Robert Arkins of 2018. I swear to God, he inspired me to go to Ballyfermot Rock College, So I'm going to put the rock back in Cliffs of Moher, or something like that.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Well,
Arkansas.
I think, Johnny, we're gonna do a kind of a John Peel show on like this, but on a Friday into Saturday morning. Okay.
Okay, cool. Nice one, John. Thanks.
Cheers, man.
I'll be coming in from Coppers in an awful state. Stop it.
Well, I guarantee you one thing, Vanessa. Whatever you hear in Coppers, we will not be playing.
But there'll be a slow set.
It has to be only cigarettes and reggae. That's the only thing they can.
Yeah, Marcel.
I know. I can scar down with the best of them now. So don't be looking down your nose there, lads. But will there be a slow set though? You have to have it clear.
No, I think because music is so diverse, but it'll have to be going back to Bill Hicks again. It'll have to be music that rocks. Artists that play from the heart. As I said, I know many a fine musician, no more than the rest of you. The country is full of them, but they're not being given the platform. So therefore, they just say, well, I might as well go off and do whatever other job because I'm not being taken seriously as an artist in this country. And there within lies the problem. So that's fundamentally what's driving me to it. It's not that I want to play my kind of music. I want to have real people. And Derek Clabby is a real person and a gentleman. And someone, if you listen to his music, it's there online. You can listen for free. And he's actually got his own webs or a new channel. And he's after putting up songs this week, 11 songs out of anger and frustration and love and everything. But they're raw. And you can listen to them in their raw essence. And there's no point in saying, oh, the sound is shit. The sound is shit because it's him on a guitar and a mic off a laptop. But it's a rough demo. But I would direct anyone to this YouTube channel and get a feeling of how an artist is feeling right now in Ireland. And he's one of many, but he's one of the best.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, and
Del Bionic is the YouTube channel, John.
Del Bionic on YouTube, and you're gonna. It's in the column tomorrow only as well. We'll have some of the videos hyperlinked in your column. Luke, you joined us late. You missed a Barney. Sorry.
No. I mean, well, next time, right?
Next time, and it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Marcel Kruger. The book. We're going to make it a bestseller if it's the last thing we do.
It deserves to be.
Marcel, where is the book available?
It's
Amazon.
No, not. Don't buy at Amazon. Just go to your local independent bookseller, and they can order it in for you. But you can get it in the Winding Stair in Dublin, in Row River Books in Dundalk, in Elibis in Belfast. The most of the independent bookshops should have it, and if not, they can order it in for you.
Babushka's Journey. It's
I'll put some pressure on the portal-based booksellers because they didn't have it here, so I had to buy it on Amazon.
No, you're forgiven.
Well, if you a bookseller, if possible, rather than Amazon. Olga, is there any final word on the Disclosures Tribunal? Any?
Oh, I think everyone's probably heard enough. No, but yeah, March 5th, hopefully, yeah. And I think that'll be the most interesting module. People might be interested.
Oh, sorry, Olga, I put up the papers.
What did you?
Could you share the thing briefly? We just go quickly through them. There's only 3 up at the moment.
Okay,
so.
just give me a sec. I just need to get them. Sorry. I think it's about I just had to try to have a look at my phone. The picture of the Florida guy is on the front of the Times, I think. The shooter.
Oh, this is the Cruz.
Yeah,
the white supremacist.
In the Florida shooting, the school shooting.
He's actually trained. He trained with a white supremacist group in Tallahassee. I was reading it earlier today.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
A lot of fake news going around as well, so be careful. You know.
I can't really read this, John, because it's really. Yeah, technology and transport head. There's been a big debate about the broadband. I haven't been really keeping up to date on it, but have you? Any of you guys, John? Have you?
Yeah.
Well, what happened really, I think, was the Mark Sharries versus the Healy Rays.
Yeah, the vote last week. Right? Yeah.
Off the agenda. So it's the Fianna Fáil agreed with Fine Gael just to take the debate out. So it is now obviously not going to a full tender. Now I've said on the show here, and I think I've written about it, that to develop the country outside Dublin, like you have to develop the broadband infrastructure. And they're giving more money. Like did I say in the budget piece that they were giving $3 billion top up to the Brexit team, and rural affairs, which includes the broadband rollout, was only getting whatever 10-15 million top up. I actually do think this is probably one of the most important infrastructure developments.
Can I just say something there on
that?
I have a bit of experience from. I used to work as a datacomms engineer with Ericsson, so I set up, working sort of setting up mobile phone networks in Africa and stuff like that. And one of the things about the sort of what's happening with air and the current thing is, basically they've got a cash cow and they're trying to sort of milk that as much as they can and stall as much as they can, because the networks are getting better and faster. So the longer they stall on rolling out new technology, the stronger the sort of wireless networks become. So the cheaper it becomes, because it's obviously cheaper without a copper network to do it. So that's really what's going on.
So then you think they're just delaying?
Yeah, that's really. I mean, and delaying the spend, which means everyone who is going to be a user suffers.
Olga, and I think the Examiner is just below that. Okay,
yeah. So the Examiner plans promise 14 billion for health projects, major benefits for Cork as government unveils spending. That's a picture there of Gabriel Byrne and his wife at the IFTAs. I think he was getting a lifetime award. But sorry, yeah, just the splash there, Juna McEnroe, Fiacre O'Connor, Elaine Loughlin, multi-billion euro projects to support rural areas, build new hospitals and to fund startup businesses will be unveiled today under the long-awaited National Development Plan. So I suppose this is part of this, right, the National Development Plan. Over there on the right, Parents Shun Free scheme to tackle child obesity by Catherine Shanahan, a free HSE programme designed to empower parents to tackle their child's increasing weight, had such poor take-up that it is now under review at a time when childhood obesity is a major health problem.
And then
Look at your man, Pat Barry from Bracken. He did well for himself there, didn't he?
Gabriel. Yeah. Well, if you go down
Pat Barry was.
I think there's something about the body that was found.
Yeah, so this is the woman, Joanne. So she was reported missing there just 2 days ago, I think. And but yeah, so she was found horrible circumstances in a wardrobe there in Ranelagh just this evening. So
It's unspeakable.
yeah, absolutely unspeakable.
Sounds
So
awful.
and I think there was chief suspect, he jumped out a window, and that was being reported earlier tonight. But yeah, officers made the grim find after forcing their way into a barricaded flat on Dublin's Ranelagh Road yesterday. So that's today at 3:45. The chief suspect jumped out the back window.
We were going to put put her photograph up as a missing person this morning on the site because it just came in.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think the guards just put around. Yeah, was it yesterday? And they put around that. Maybe it was just yesterday.
Definitely, it's definitely in our inbox.
Yeah.
Well, that's shocking.
Awful, yeah. Awful.
Okay, that's all the papers we have up anyway for today.
Yeah, we'll add them there later.
Okay. Everybody seems to have gone dark on the. Oh, there. Oh, that's grand. Thank you so much to Derek Mooney, who's no longer here. A big thank you to Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny. Thank you, Johnny.
Nice shot.
Fist bump. Luke Brennan in Porto. Marcel Kruger, a selling author in Dundalk, Cologne-born, Dundalk-based. Luke, by the way, is Buddhistan born or Black? Dunleary born, yeah. Olga Cronin, thank you so much for all the disclosures, and we'll hopefully see you on the site tomorrow. Or we'll see you on the site tomorrow. Vanessa Foran, accountant, Fianna Fáil, basher.
No, I'm not. I have very good friends in Fianna Fáil. I just take exception to this idea that Sinn Féin are.
You're a Derek Mooney guy. Poor Derek.
I bash all the boys. I bash them all. I'm the basher. Yeah.
Chucky Arlaw.
Okay. I think Johnny can testify that. Chucky Arlaw, as Tony says. Thank you so much.
But I tell you, Derek was very quick to remind us he's no longer Fianna Fáil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once a Fianna Fáiler, you're always, once a jet from your first cigarette to your last, whatever. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll hopefully see you on the site tomorrow or here, in fact, next Thursday. Okay, bye. Thank you. Okay.